is the ultimate travel guide from the people who know it best. Weekends with Yankee.
This is a story about finding home in unexpected places. In 2012, the Syrian civil war forced Ahmed Aissa and his wife Evelyn to flee to the United States, a country he'd never been to. They settled in Evelyn's home state of New Hampshire, and there, a homesick Ahmed began baking the sweets he'd loved as a child. That soon became a business, which has now expanded all over New England. So today I'm going to be meeting up with Ahmed to hear his stories and bake some of his delicious recipes. Hi, Ahmed.
Hi.
It's so nice to meet you.
Nice to see you too.
Well, it looks like I might need to put on some protective gear.
Yes, I got something ready for you.
Okay, great. And a little Laverne and Shirley moment with the hairnet? Okay, great. All right, so take me to the baklava station.
So that's where the phyllo dough
Okay.
processing spot.
Okay.
And that's the first step to kind of, get started.
Okay. Here, oh, I see some beautiful dough.
Yeah. So we're gonna dust the dough and go for it.
So I imagine this is sort of like a giant pasta machine where you can make the rollers closer and closer together to get it thinner.
Correct.
Ah, look at that. Now, is this something you watched at home?
We did it by hand.
Yeah.
And it was really intensive to do it by hand, but it was a lot of fun, so like rewarding.
There's still a certain amount of handwork to this, even though you're using a
Phyllo dough
machine.
is a very intensive labor product. It's not easy. It's not
Yeah. Miles of phyllo now.
So it is not very thin at this point,
Really?
but it does get much thinner.
Looks thin to me.
You really want to go and make it as thin as possible. And that's what makes the crunch better and everything better.
It's incredible, the elasticity of this dough.
And this is why it's difficult to make gluten-free baklava.
Yes. You really need those rubber bands, those gluten rubber bands.
And then basically you can see like it's really like very thin.
This is extraordinary, and I am now so curious to see how you turned this into the layered dessert of baklava. Hello.
Hi guys. So this is Parmela.
Hi.
And this is Sam.
Nice
this
to
is
meet
my
you.
awesome team. and so in this station here, we get the cut phyllo,
Uh-huh.
and we top it with cocoa powder
Uh-huh.
and walnut
Uh-huh.
and chocolate chips. And then we layer it on the top, and then we take it to cutting and then baking next.
Okay. Well, watching how beautiful the process is, now I'm very eager to try the final product.
Awesome. And I have some ready.
Oh, I can't wait to try these. This looks beautiful.
Enjoy.
I imagine you eat enough of these day to day, huh?
We do a lot of product testing.
Oh my goodness. It's not too sweet, and it has this really rich chocolate walnut. So I hear we're gonna do a little baking lesson at your house now?
Yes.
All right,
Look forward to it.
let's go do that.
Awesome.
So what are we gonna be making?
We'll be making Maamoul cookies. So those cookies are traditional to the Middle East. They're made in the holiday celebrations, and it makes up actually a wonderful snack.
I have to say, this does not look like an intimidating list of ingredients. I mean,
No.
there's 5 ingredients?
Yeah, it's very basic, and then the filling is just dried fruit paste. We're doing dates, yeah.
Okay, so how do we make the pastry that surrounds it?
So that's what we're going to start with. We grab the butter, we toss it in. We'll add the sugar, about 3 ounces. And then the last thing you add is the flour. So the next process is basically just portioning the dough into little tiny miniature
Walnut
balls.
size bell?
Yeah, something like this, like almost like an inch diameter.
Is that okay?
Yeah, perfect. Now we're moving to the filling. You can flavor it. I prefer the orange blossom water. In spring, if you walk around Damascus, they have the lemon trees in the house garden, and that's what you smell a lot around the city sometimes. Evening, particularly, like the breeze comes out, and it's like so aromatic. So yeah, it's easy to squish. It's not really sticky once you have a liquid on it.
Right. Oh, that's
And
interesting.
So the next step, basically, into kind of creating little slightly smaller balls of the dates for each one of those.
Okay. I'm being
Don't
slow.
worry.
You're
Don't
a
worry,
lot
don't worry.
faster
It's
than
me.
I am.
I'm so used
Your
to this. Like,
experience,
autopilot,
yes.
what do you call that? We'll bring the dusting plate. We'll grab one of those guys.
Okay.
We'll put them here, give it a squish. And we try at this point to work it less because that's where it gets like too melty.
Oh, because the butter, right, the butter will melt.
And then dust it from the side, knock. Put it in here, give it a squish.
Gosh, that's so cool.
And then comes out. So,
wow, that's really gorgeous.
Yep.
Yay! That's so pretty. I
Awesome.
love it. What's your earliest memory of making these cookies?
This is actually the first thing I helped my mom with.
Really?
Yep. So I would be shaping those little balls of the fruit, and I get so proud of it. So these go to the oven for 20 to 25 minutes at 350 degrees.
Okay.
And that's it.
Great. Oh, these look great. They're so tender. I think some people grow up eating Fig Newtons. These are so much better. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you met. So you grew up in New Hampshire, but you really just fell in love with Syria and were prepared to live there indefinitely?
Yeah, just a wonderful place. Loved the people that I met, felt very at home there, and had met this guy. So
now, Ahmed, in Syria, you were not baking at all.
No, it was a really nice hobby that I enjoyed so much.
Yeah.
Yes. I think growing up, my mom was the person who kind of, imprinted a lot into my personality. She's really a strong woman, but also she had like a beautiful cooking skills, and I think had a more like positive impact on my desire to kind of dive into the food world, even though it wasn't my profession.
And so when did you realize that your lives were changing beyond your control?
So the revolution in Syria started in March, and this would have been in 2011. Not long after that, the U.S. embassy was attacked and closed down for a month. We knew that we needed to leave.
Never thought I would be at the other side of the world, and with the possibility maybe not coming back anytime soon.
I remember reading recently that, and I think anyone who has, immigration in their family history could relate to this, that recipes are something you can always bring with you. They take no space in your suitcase, but yet they are so powerfully able to connect you to home. So how quickly did your thoughts turn to, I need to make a life for myself here, and the food is going to be the way I do that?
When I first came, first of all, I thought, okay, I need to kind of create a path for a career. And of course, in terms of the nostalgia, in terms of the emotional kind of connection, that's kind of kept me going in a way, because I kept trying recipes and try to kind of simulate things to what we used to do. And I realized this is a nice piece of my culture that I can bring on board and, present it in this, in this country. Considering the news were really negative, and I thought this is a positive thing to go for. So that was a motive for me to get started with, thinking about how to start a food business.
Now, after you've been here for 9 years, do you feel that this has become home as well?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. I feel like this is my home, and this is part of also where I think it's always better to look forward.
Yeah.
So I'm looking always forward. This is where I belong now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have my daughter here and wife, and this is all I wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think these are exactly the stories we need to hear right now.
Certainly.
And also, these are so delicious. These treats are such a delight, and we are eating better because you took this chance to come here. So I thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.